Every morning, employees hurried into a sleek glass office building in downtown Chicago. Suits, briefcases, coffee in hand, everyone focused on their busy day ahead. And right outside the entrance, on the cold concrete steps, sat the same homeless man. Torn jacket, old backpack, a small paper cup with a few coins. Most people didn't even look at him. Some walked around him like he was invisible. A few quietly complained to security that he was ruining the building's image. But one morning, when security finally tried to force him to leave, the man calmly made a phone call. Minutes later, the building manager came rushing outside in a panic because the homeless man they had all ignored wasn't homeless at all. He was the owner of the entire building.
But the question that left everyone stunned wasn't just who he was. It was why he had been sitting out there in the first place. Why would a billionaire owner dress like a homeless man and quietly sit outside his own building for days? Who exactly was he watching, and what was he trying to prove? And out of the hundreds of employees who walked past him every single day, why did only one person stop to treat him with genuine kindness? What Daniel Brooks discovered during those mornings outside would change more than just one person's life. It would expose the true character of everyone inside that building.
Daniel Brooks was the kind of billionaire most people would never recognize on the street. He didn't chase headlines, he didn't post photos of luxury vacations, and he definitely didn't enjoy the spotlight that usually followed powerful CEOs. At 62 years old, Daniel was the quiet founder of Brooks Property Group, a company that owned dozens of commercial buildings across the United States. From New York to Chicago to Los Angeles, thousands of people worked inside properties that technically belonged to him. Yet almost none of them knew what he looked like. Daniel preferred it that way because over the years he had learned something important about people. Titles, presentations, and polished meetings rarely showed the truth about a workplace. Executives could deliver perfect reports, managers could claim everything was running smoothly, and employees could act professional when leadership was around. But Daniel believed the real culture of a company revealed itself in much simpler moments. How people treated the janitor, how they spoke to security guards, how they reacted to someone who appeared powerless. So every few months, Daniel had a habit that would shock most of his executives. He would quietly visit one of his own buildings, completely disguised. No tailored suit, no expensive watch, no assistant announcing his arrival. Just an old jacket, a worn backpack, and a quiet place to sit outside the entrance. Then he would watch, and what he saw often told him far more about his company than any boardroom meeting ever could. On the first morning, Daniel sat outside the building. The city air was sharp and cold. Employees hurried through the glass doors, clutching their coffee cups and checking their phones. No one paid much attention to the quiet man sitting near the entrance. Hours passed. Daniel watched carefully as hundreds of people walked by. Some avoided eye contact. Others looked at him for a brief second before quickly looking away. But late that morning, something different happened. A young woman pushed open the side door of the building cafe and stepped outside. She looked like she had just started her shift, hair tied back, apron still slightly wrinkled, a cup of fresh coffee in her hand. Her name was Emily Carter. She paused when she noticed Daniel sitting there. For a moment, Daniel expected the same reaction he'd seen all morning, an awkward glance and a quick walk away. Instead, Emily walked straight toward him. Without saying much, she gently placed the warm cup beside him. "Here," she said softly. "It's cold out today." Daniel looked surprised. "I don't have any money," he replied. Emily smiled and shook her head. "Don't worry about it. Everyone deserves a warm coffee." Then she simply walked back inside, leaving Daniel staring at the cup in quiet disbelief. By the fourth morning, Daniel had become a familiar sight outside the building. Employees stepped around him on their way to work. Some whispered to each other as they passed. A few glanced at him with clear annoyance, as if his presence alone made the building look less professional. Eventually, the complaints started. Several office workers went to the front desk and told security that a homeless man had been sitting outside the entrance every day. They said clients might see him. They said it gave the building a bad image. Late that afternoon, a security guard finally walked outside toward Daniel. The guard stopped a few feet away and crossed his arms. "Sir," he said politely but firmly, "I'm going to have to ask you to leave the property." Daniel slowly looked up from the bench. "The property?" he asked calmly. "Yes, sir," the guard replied. "You can't stay here." For a moment, Daniel studied the building entrance, the people watching from inside, and the guard standing in front of him. Then he nodded slightly. "All right," he said quietly, and he reached into his pocket for his phone. Daniel calmly dialed a number and held the phone to his ear. "Hi, Mark," he said in a relaxed tone. "It's Daniel. I'm outside the building right now." The security guard frowned, clearly confused. A few employees nearby slowed down, curious about what was happening. There was a brief pause on the call. Then Daniel added quietly, "I think we might need to talk about how visitors are treated here." Less than 2 minutes later, the glass doors suddenly swung open. The building manager, Mark Henderson, rushed outside, slightly out of breath. His eyes scanned the entrance until they landed on Daniel. His face immediately drained of color. "Oh my God, Mr. Brooks," he said, hurrying forward. "I'm so sorry, sir. I had no idea you were here today." The security guard's posture stiffened. Mark quickly turned to him and spoke in a stunned voice. "Do you realize who this is?" He pointed toward Daniel. "This is Daniel Brooks, the owner of the building." A wave of shock moved through the small crowd gathered near the entrance. The same employees who had walked past Daniel all week were now staring at him in disbelief. Just moments ago, he had been invisible to them. Now, suddenly, every eye in the lobby was locked on him. Daniel slowly stood up and dusted off his worn jacket. For a few seconds, he said nothing. The silence made the moment even heavier. Then he turned toward the cafe entrance. "Do you know who showed the most professionalism in this entire building?" Daniel asked calmly. The employees exchanged confused looks. Daniel raised his hand and pointed. "The young woman from the cafe," he said. Emily Carter froze where she stood, still holding a tray. "For 4 days, she brought me coffee and treated me with respect without ever asking who I was." In the days that followed, the story spread through the entire building faster than anyone expected. At first, people whispered about it in elevators and break rooms. The mysterious homeless man outside had actually been the building's owner all along. But the more the story circulated, the more people began to reflect on what had really happened. Emily's life changed almost overnight. Just a week later, she officially became the cafe manager, and the company announced it would support her college tuition, just as Daniel had promised. But the biggest change wasn't Emily's promotion, it was the atmosphere inside the building. Employees who once rushed past security now stopped to say hello. Some began holding the door open for others. Even the janitorial staff noticed people greeting them by name, because everyone in the building had learned the same quiet lesson. You never really know who might be watching, and kindness costs nothing. The truth is, moments like this happen more often than we realize. Every single day, we cross paths with people we know nothing about. The delivery driver who brings a package, the janitor cleaning the hallway late at night, the quiet stranger sitting on a bench outside a building.
Most of the time, it's easy to overlook them. But a person's true character isn't measured by how they treat powerful people in a meeting room. It's revealed in the small, unnoticed moments, when there's nothing to gain and no one important watching. Emily didn't offer that cup of coffee because she expected a reward. She did it because kindness was simply part of who she was. And sometimes, those small acts create consequences far bigger than we imagine, because the person you ignore today might hold more power than you think. But more importantly, they're still a human being who deserves respect.